This is the Business Stuff Podcast. This is where I will share the lessons I've learned from advising thousands of businesses over almost 30 years. Each episode will give you practical insight to allow you to learn from other people's mistakes. I'll be pulling in experts from our team and the world of business, and together we'll make sure your business is giving you what you want. My name is Martin, and this is the Business Stuff Podcast. Hi, it's Martin from the Accelerator team. I'm here with Laura McGrath from Quorum. Hi Laura, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
And we're going to talk about sustainability.
Yes.
Now, one of the things we've already said is it's quite a big topic. It can be a bit, I suppose, overwhelming for people, but what do you mean by sustainability? What do people need to know to get them into this?
So the hardest thing about sustainability, I think, is that it is such a big topic. People traditionally, I think, associate with the environment and being environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
But it's so much more. There's the social element, looking after the people. The best analogy I've seen is this people, planet, profit, which is you need to balance the people who work for you, the planet and the environment, and if you're a business, profit, because if you're a business and you don't make money, then you're not going to
Can't pay people and do the nice things for the community and the places around you.
So it's quite often described as like a three-legged stool. If one leg of the stool is too long, then the stool's going to topple over. So a lot of sustainability is about balancing those three things, but I think a lot of people just assume it's just the environment, and then they think it's just about making things green.
Because it is also that, though, isn't it?
But I think it's
to be fair, solar panels, great, but we're not here really.
Well, I think
you're not here just to talk about solar panels.
I think so. I'm like a fully fledged environmental person. Since I was a little girl, have been all about the environment and green. I am as eco as one would hope for a sustainability manager. But I know that if somebody is not environmentally focused, or if that doesn't work for them, you're never going to win them over on that argument. You need to bring in those social elements or the governance elements of ESG. Make it about, this could make your business money, this could retain your staff, this could do lots of wonderful things, and at the same time help the environment, but you just don't have to sell it as that sort of approach. It
doesn't have to be the old saying of the tree hugger. You can do nice things.
I'm like a secret tree hugger.
I like it. The secret tree hugging society.
That's
got a ring to it. I like that. So what does your day look like then? Because people might say, so for people who don't know, Quorum Park's a large industrial estate.
We're an office park. We are we're just short of 1 acre, and we've got 16 buildings and up to 30 tenants. My role.
How many people?
So post-COVID, this is interesting. 3,000 on a quiet day, and could be up to 8,000 or 9,000 on a busy day. But there could be up to 17,000 people working for businesses based on the park. And
there's 16 buildings with how many businesses represented? Because a building isn't a business, is it?
So there's about 32, I think, at the last count, businesses based on that.
And I'm just putting some context on this, because people might say, well, I'm a small business based out of X. Why would Laura be able to help me? But you look at after the park and also the individual businesses, which could be as big as and as small as. So
Tesco Bank would be our largest tenants. Actually, very sure it might be now. There's up to 1,000 members of staff, and then we've got small offices with maybe 10 or less staff, and there's also a shared office on there.
So you've got experience of helping all different sizes of businesses with dramatically different needs.
Yes, so my role as Community and Sustainability Director is essentially placemaking, which is to turn Quorum. We used to be Quorum Business Park, and then in 2019 we dropped the business and just wanted to focus on it. Feeling like
not cool enough,
to take that up with my boss. I came back from maternity leave and we weren't a business park anymore. We were a park.
You go away for a couple of months.
But it was all very much themed around, we have businesses based within the park, but wouldn't it be nice to just feel like it's a park? We've got all this green space, we've got all these events and community. The businesses can just sort of exist in that ecosystem with that social element at the forefront, which is why we became trendy and became Quorum Park. But my role is I've got objectives around supporting tenants on their journey to net zero and supporting tenants on their sustainability path. Now we've got Greg's as Greg's head office based on site, Paul Rhodes, their sustainability manager, he doesn't need me to support him on his journey to net zero, but he can help me support smaller tenants on their journey to net zero.
It's also useful to have people who you can bounce off and surround yourself by other people, which actually might be one of the distinct differences here if you're a small business based out on your own somewhere.
So we have a sustainability working group, and Paul, like I just mentioned, he recently did a presentation to our sustainability working group detailing how Greg's had developed their ESG strategy, focusing on kind of like the communication and the engagement behind it. And there were businesses there at that meeting who maybe have 10 staff, and they're getting like a hands-on, behind-the-scenes breakdown from one of the most high-profile sustainability professionals in the region, how he went about doing it. And then we're all collaborating afterwards and sharing best practice and sharing ideas. So yeah, I think it's quite a unique setup in that respect, that you get that insight, and it really does feel like a community.
What's the, if we ignore the solar panels, but obviously reducing energy usage is always still a one of the legs, I suppose, or part of one of the legs. What's the next easiest place for people to go out and do you think, Laura?
Well, if depending on what your setup is. So what we've looked at is educating staff around the nuances of sustainability. So I'm a big advocate for carbon literacy. What we did is we took key representatives from businesses across the park, and we actually half funded their carbon literacy 2-day course. The idea being that we were all working from the same hymn sheet effectively. We were using the same language, we were using the same terminology. And the idea was each of those individual businesses would then want that one person could take that carbon literacy back into their building and share it with the rest of their staff. It was a bit of a trickle effect. My big thing is I always say you can't unlearn carbon literacy. If somebody has learnt and understands that, it doesn't matter what they go ahead and do from that point on, you've got that.
They'll always know
that's in there, and they can make that choice.
What's the biggest eye opener for people? And I know it's a 2-day course and there's a lot, but what's the one, like, people walk away and go, wow, I really wouldn't have got that.
I think it's more, so day one you come out of it like, oh God, the world's doomed, it's awful. This is like, you get like a real like heavy hitting intro to how bad things could be, and then you come out at the end of day 2 and you feel a bit like, oh, actually I feel really empowered to make a change, and as an individual some things are outside of my control, but if I focus on the things that are within my control, there is really motivation.
Personal accountability is not a fashionable topic these days, I don't think. But there is still a lot you can do within. So maybe start there.
Yeah, and I think for your own well-being as well. I think sometimes it can be like, when I watch the news, sometimes I'm like,
elephant all at once. It's like,
and sometimes because of the nature of my role, I sometimes have to remind myself like it isn't actually my job to just exclusively fix climate change, but sometimes it feels like that. And a big thing I did was focus on, right, what is individually within my circle of influence? What can I individually change? And I think actually the more and more people are vocal about that, and the more and more people have those conversations, the more that businesses look around and think, actually, this is what people want. We need to be doing this, and then change happens. I think change might not be happening as quick as people would like, but the change is there. I think businesses, the businesses that are doing it well, yourselves included, are streets ahead of government and local authority in terms of the impact and stuff that they were doing.
So leading from the front,
I mean, it's where the money is as well, so it makes a lot of sense. But I think these days, I'm motivated by being a force for good and doing good and making those changes. But my boss doesn't pay me just so I can be good. It pays me because it makes our site marketable and an attractive place to base your business. I think it would be naive to ignore that.
And what do you think the key, when people walk out and they go, oh, well, I'll start there and I'll do that. You've mentioned the personal stuff, like some examples of, because the reason I'm asking it like that, Laura, is if you're a very small business, you might be a 1 or 2 person business, that is almost individual identity. You can then just...
I think policy is a really big strategy to avoid a lot of people, when they say greenwashing, not many greenwashers, I think, actually mean to. There's a terminology, like greenwishing. Like,
what's greenwashing, just for people who don't know?
Greenwashing is when you make a sustainable claim, and then when you look in the behind the scenes, it's really just like wishy-washy terminology.
It's like distraction. It's like, oh, we're going to plant some trees, but we're going to just keep pumping into the river.
Yeah.
Or we're going to... And I didn't pick trees for any particular reason there, but it's like, oh, we're not going to stop the bad things. We're just going to try and offset it with a good thing.
We've given everybody a plastic bottle, a reusable water bottle, so they can't have a plastic bottle, but we've done absolutely nothing about our carbon footprint. But a lot of the time, I think it's more people think they're doing the right thing, and they think but they haven't looked behind it. It's a very nuanced thing, and it's very...
And what's greenwishing then? So
greenwishing is where somebody's really someone came to me and sold me these sustainable cups to replace single-use plastics at our event, and they were like, I've got these great cups, and you can they're biodegradable, you'll be able to compost them, and I went and bought a wormery and we've got an allotment, and I had put this wormery in the allotment, and I had these really great little reusable these cups to compost on site. It's going to be so sustainable. And then one of our tenants was like, you can't just put it in a wormery. That needs to go to a very specific factory setting in order to biodegrade. And he's like, which you're not going to have. He's like, that's going to sit in your wormery for 15 years plus.
Because the coffee cups are like that. Or weren't there? There was a lot of, say it's recyclable, but actually it's very niche. And
if you put that cup in your plastic recycling, you actually risk none of that recycling getting recycled, because when it's scanned at the factory, they're going to identify that as and then the whole stuff might end up in landfill. So I was genuinely thought I was doing a good thing, but I didn't have all the information at my disposal.
Does that lead you back to the literacy, understanding
those choices,
what is possible, isn't possible, and from what is possible, what's within your control, and what you can only influence.
Which is why I think our sustainability group works really well, because tenants can come along, see what we get experts in different regions and they can come and learn these things and see these things firsthand and feel more confident that I'm not claiming to be an expert in everything, but I can reel in an expert if needed.
And what's the immediate benefit from these people? Then obviously they've got that weight lifted, they've a bit more clarity. What do you find they then go off and actually do? Then the tangible stuff that they do.
So one of our
policy,
So I think one of our tenants, NCFE, they did the carbon literacy training, and they actually went away super galvanized. Sam and Leanne were like, we're going to do this, and they set up a green working group. And they managed to get different streams across the business involved. They got the CFO involved. They created a sustainable purchasing strategy. They've created a wildlife garden, bug hotels. They have also began the process of rolling out carbon literacy training with their staff. Again, I think that's one of the the easiest auditable trail of things that you can do is if you can show you've delivered training and you've delivered understanding. The fact is, carbon reduction is really important, but you're going to have to pay a professional to do that. You're going to have to pay somebody to install a solar panel. You're going to have to pay a renewable energy contract. But training and educating your workforce is something you can tangibly do. And the other big thing for us is this biodiversity stuff. So we've rewilded a large section of the park that can be just letting the grass grow, but we've also got dedicated wildflower meadows. We've got an allotment, a community garden. We created a stumpery, which is where things can rot and decompose. One of the things someone said to me, you can't just plant for butterflies, you've also got to do the work to make the caterpillars turn into the butterflies. So it's creating a whole ecosystem on site. And suddenly I think I'd been here for 8 years before I'd really thought of myself as we're like landlords, and we're landowners, and we've got land to manage. So some of these things sound like they could actually also be fairly straightforward. Like the rewilding. Not everyone's got. But just throw some
fields,
some wildflower seeds down. That would make a great wildflower meadow.
There's a bit of grass outside of most people's stuff somewhere.
And stick a bird feeder up in the winter. So we started really strategizing our rewilding in about 2020, and we've been inundated with wildlife sightings since. We've just literally this morning shared a video of, there was a deer spotted on the site yesterday.
That's interesting.
We've had barn owls, we've had brown owls, we've had foxes, but like direct sightings. Loads of deer ate all my sweet corn in the allotment last year, but I let it go because I thought it was quite exciting.
Did you say there was 30,000 people?
13,000, yeah, but it's 13,000 people.
And yet you've got deer,
and there's deer,
snooping about.
barn owls, all sorts.
That's great, isn't it?
So we've got a stream that runs along the side of the park, which is a protected area because water voles were found there. So the whole park actually had to be redesigned to go in a different direction to avoid this protected area where the water voles are. So we're very lucky that we have quite a large expanse of land which is completely protected. And from that, we've managed to create this space, which I think it wins hearts and minds in a way that carbon and other elements of sustainability maybe don't, because people can see something tangible. It's pretty cool. Isn't it? Yeah. And there's a bit
in a way that a solar panel just isn't.
Isn't. And I think sometimes if I ever feel a bit like overwhelmed with like, well, what's the point of this and what's the point of that? I have been known to, on my lunchtime, go and walk through the wildflower meadow that we have and be like, this is here because I put it here. This is why this is here. And
so what do people do who haven't got space though?
So you can,
let's just say someone's got an industrial estate in the middle of Bladen, just under one of the, by the metro centre or something. There's no grass, they haven't got a stream. Where would you suggest they?
Well, they could do volunteering days in wilder spaces and green spaces. There's a lot of, I'm a trustee of the Children's Foundation, and they've got allotment spaces, and they're always looking for businesses to come along and get involved. And I think from a sustainability point of view, spending some time getting your staff to spend time in nature is a tick as far as I'm concerned. Like you should definitely consider that. But even it could just be as simple as sticking a bird feeder at the back. If you've got a flat roof, could you put some green space on your roof? Could you do something there?
You get those living roof things now, don't you?
So we've got a bus stop that's out of use, and that's one of my long-term plans for the bus is to turn it into like a little mini tropical paradise.
One of the lads here probably must be 15 years ago now got a shed with a
green
like
roof,
a lichin or something, or
and
this is werewolves or moss?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Lichen, I think.
Lichen is a werewolf. Yeah. Sorry, he hasn't got werewolves all over his shed. He's got moss all over his shed.
This is the sort of thing that I find myself. I'd be like, oh well, now we'll just run a forest, and then I was like, right, let's go and put every roof with this, and I get carried away. But I think, like I say, it's something that people connect with, and it winning hearts and minds is such a big part of the battle. So
we've talked about the environment. We've mentioned, but almost dismissed, but obviously looking after your energy, your carbon footprint. What about getting these, thousands of people in and out of the park every day, then, or your workplace, or your industrial unit, and like what can people do there? Because a lot of it's the premises, which we've talked about, and then what about the travel of getting in and out?
So if you're measuring your carbon footprint, a lot of businesses' scope 3 will be predominantly business travel, and their staff
you might have to unpack some of that. So when you say scope 3,
so when you measure your carbon footprint, you might start off with your scope 1 and 2, which is like the production of the property, the building, the energy. But when you start looking your wider footprint,
so you go outside of your
direct control, it's your indirect emissions. Your scope 3 is your indirect emissions, and that's the sort of thing like the carbon footprint of your member of staff travelling to work. It's a very interesting time because obviously hybrid working has changed how we work, and a lot of businesses are finding that actually some of their previous targets around active travel, they're smashing them without even trying, because people are choosing to work from home. But I often think, so we target 40% occupancy of a building in the car park. We can comfortably manage that if everyone does hybrid working, and I'm like, but then nobody's actively made the decision to move away from the car, but they're not in the car park because they're at home. So it could be as simple as just dressing up your hybrid working policy and putting it under an active travel policy if people are encouraged to spend 1 or 2 days.
Flexible pack, put it in. Because again, I know if anyone who's trying to recruit at the moment, if you can, if you're an industrial estate and Bladen and you need someone there to stick that thing to that thing, you can't do that from home. But where you can, that is also a way to then encourage. And it's
a perk for your members of staff, so they do appreciate it. I've watched from the outside. I've got quite a unique insight into all these different businesses and seeing how they've all approached hybrid working, and I find that the general gist is that hybrid working's here to stay, and we're kind of learning to adapt around this new working pattern. But one of the pros being the car park is much less of a pinch point than it once was.
Yeah. What's the what's the key takeaway or the key way to make that flexible pattern succeed then? That's not why you're here necessarily, but
speak to your staff, talk to staff about what they want, see what they want, because
rather than tell them what they're getting.
Yeah, because I think I've watched that what everyone did, that they all like, right, we're going to tell them this, and then 2 months later it's like, they said this, so now we're doing it like this.
So just engagement.
Yeah, and like try and make it feel like choice. So since there's been less pressure on the car park, I've had a much easier time winning people over on cycling. I think in the past, when there was a pressure on the car park and you try and bring cycling into the building, people are like, oh my god, they're going to take away my car parking space and make me get the bus, or they're going to make me go on the bike. Now the pressure's up.
Well, if you want us to cycle, we know it's only because you haven't got parking space. It's like, no, it's actually we want to do it anyway.
Whereas now, because the pressure's a little bit off the car park, I can be like, no, it's just actually, it's a nice, we have a fleet of pool bikes people can hire for free. We do supported bikes. Yeah, so you can hire a pool bike for free for up to a month. You get the whole kit.
Really you're borrowing on.
Yeah, so borrowing a pool bike for a month. But we try and do a supported handhold throughout the whole process. So you get the
stabilisers as you.
Well, it's more for. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to cycle to work, but I haven't got a clue how to get there off road. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to start. So by just doing those first couple of journeys, we might even meet somebody.
It without buying a bike.
Yeah, and then the idea being at the end of it, then if there is a cycle to work scheme in your work, you might choose to buy a bike. And I think we've seen quite a lot of people go from that total beginner to regular cyclists. I'm a fair weather cyclist. I'll cycle if it's warm and dry, but I still, in the summer, I aim to cycle 2 or 3 times a week.
But also you haven't got to cycle again. I know we've got common people that we know, Claire from Net Zero. They, at the end of a conversation with them, they kind of went, well, everyone hasn't got to do everything.
Yeah.
Pick the things you're happy to do.
Yeah, so don't make somebody who lives in Sunderland cycling, or
I know it's 40 miles, but
but Nick down the road, he's the boss and he lives around the corner. He doesn't have to cycle. Like, be realistic, but also nobody's perfect. By existing, you have a carbon footprint, so just give yourself a break on that one. But just by making these like thoughtful
just chip
decisions.
Away on those.
Well, I think it's just I like to think of it as putting a filter on my thought processes. So whenever I choose to do something, I look at it and think, well, that might work. That might be slightly more sustainable. That might be a better option. There's not one hard and fast rule that's going to work every time. Then you don't. It's not as overwhelming.
Can we talk very briefly about buying policies, purchasing policies?
So that's pretty much my sustainable purchasing policy.
So where can businesses get off to easy wins there? Because most suppliers don't necessarily list their credentials, do they? Although it's becoming more of a thing now.
Yeah, so being vocal as a business about that's what you're looking for. If you're a big business, you could be pretty vocal and say, like, we're looking for supply. And that will carry influence, won't it? Yeah. So we only want to buy this kind of thing. If there's enough of a demand for it, people will step in. And that's when they'll start to supply it. Yes, and you could even just, so simple as asking for a copy of a sustainability strategy from your suppliers. I think that would make them, if you're a big chunk of their business, and you ask for
20 grand a year with someone and they ask for it,
even if you've not actually got any intention of not using them, if they can't produce one, trust me, there will be one within 6 months if you ask that question. And
so that's interesting. Just
putting the feelers out there and saying, like,
I nearly said the threat. I don't mean it as a threat, but just we might lose work here because they've asked for it.
And it's worth thinking about if you've got a production line, if you're a business that has elements of your business rely on raw materials, it's worth thinking about for your long-term strategy of your business anyway. I saw a great quote the other day that infinite growth with finite materials isn't possible.
No.
We are going to have to change how we operate. So
because the supply, most of the COVID issues were around supply chain because the supply chains were cut. They weren't operating as normal. So if you're buying something in, actually you might have a bit of business resilience in getting a local.
Is it chocolate this year that the price of chocolate's going to go up because there was so many there was so many floods because of climate change. There was loads of floods in certain parts of the world. That the cocoa crop this year failed in large parts of the world. So,
well, I just won 10 eggs in a raffle.
Yeah, well, you want to hold on to them.
I might sit on them and sell them off just before then.
So yeah, the impacts of climate change are already being felt in that respect. So if I was running a factory and I had raw materials, I'd already be on the supply chain thinking about in 10 years' time, what
diversify your supply chain if nothing else. Yeah.
And your scope 3 emissions, your indirect emissions, are your suppliers' scope 1 emissions. So if everybody was to spend a little bit more time focusing on their direct emissions, then that would impact everybody's supply chain at the same time.
Well, I reckon we spend the last 2 minutes literally talking about what's the thing that people keep getting wrong on this.
So I think expecting there to be a cut and paste one size fits all approach. I think we've talked a few times about nuance, but it's really important to understand that there is a bit of nuance to every decision you make, and critical thinking and looking at it from both sides is always going to be better than just trying to have this standard or that's how you do it. That's not how you do it.
Because there's nothing worse, presumably, than just saying I'll have somebody else's policy and we'll just do that and then not doing it. What's the point in that? But also, you're probably missing genuine opportunity to try and make improvements. And
I think just having just taking the time to put together a solid policy. I think even just taking the time to look at what you already do, even if you don't think you've already got a policy, you probably have got all the framework in place. Just spend some time on some nice marketing, some nice comms, dress it up to look engaging, dress it up to look like a lot of time and thought's gone into it, which invariably it probably has, and then you've got.
Who are you dressing for then? Just in the last 10 seconds, addressing that to get buy-in internally or externally, or a bit of both?
Stakeholders generally, just anyone who you think's got an impact, is impacted by your business existing. You want to bring them along.
Especially if you're in somebody else's buy-in chain, purchasing chain, because the bigger business you have as a customer, they are going to ask for this soon, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's legally they're going to be asking for it soon. So
they're going to have to, because a lot of people don't realise very big business. A lot of this is being brought in by law, isn't it?
Yeah. So now is the best time. I think whilst everybody is kind of finding their feet, now is a really good window to stand out and look like. I mean, you guys being the first B Corp in the Northeast area, it's a really good time to nail your mast to the flag. I think I've got that 5 muscles.
We'll end there before we get any more analogies wrong. Laura, thanks very much for coming in today. It's been really good. Loads of great tips there for people to think about sustainability in a different way, hopefully, and some action points to get on with as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.